this episode, Dread is going to show you how to make Ork Armour. Nice. Welcome to Dread Wargaming. In this episode, as you just heard, I'm going to show you a really simple technique to make Ork Armour. Now, if you're scratch building, or you're just converting, or you just want to kit bash with a few bits and just add a little bit of detail, simple conversions, you know, that sort of stuff, this is a really simple way to ork up your stuff. I mean, most orky stuff is made of Ramshackle armour, so it's something that you definitely want to add to your arsenal of skills if you're an ork collector. So let's go cameras down and get stuck right in. So, you're going to want some plasticard offcuts. Some textured bits would be nice, but either way, just some old offcuts for this project. Any old bits from your scrap box. A hobby knife, nice hobby knife, good grip on the handle, be good, but you can use an old blade, so don't even worry about the blade. It can be an old one for this. You want some files, possibly, some different angled ones, so you can sort of like, you know, really wear down this piece of armour plating. And you're also going to want some like Dremel bits if you've got a Dremel tool. If you've got like a handheld drill tool, you can use these for chipping up things and giving it a little bit of a knock. And also an old model that you want to work on, something that you want to add an armour plate to, of course. So in this time, I've got my truck. Okay, now I've cut a piece of 1mm and a piece of 0.5mm. This is because I want to use it for the project. So the project here that I've made this for is for this back piece here. I want to detail a panel because this piece here is actually magnetic. So using my magnet stick, check out my video up here about magnet sticks. You can make your own, but you can check the polarity of magnets that you've placed and stuff like that and make sure that you've got them the right way up before you glue them. So that's why there's some stuck on there at the moment. They're just sat there waiting to go onto a model that I was working on. But yeah. There's a magnet in there, so I want to hide it with a nice armour plate. So then the 0.5mm one is going to be for that. But for the demonstration, I'm going to do this 1mm one because 1mm is a lot easier to work with. It's the most common plasticard to work with, and for beginners, it's definitely the one I would recommend because it's easy enough to cut, it's easy enough to work with, and it's not too thin that you're having trouble with it. It's not too thick that you're having trouble with it, and yeah, basically it's the best one to use, really. All-rounder. It's a good all-rounder. There's good reasons for using the other ones too, but if you want to find out more about that, you'll have to wait for another episode, wouldn't you? But yeah, let's crack on. So the thing we all notice about Ork Armour is that it's not ever nice and flat and well, it's not ever. There's always going to be exceptions, but it's very rarely is it perfect. You know, that looks more imperial when it's just nice and clean and blah blah blah. So what we have to do as orcs is give it some battle damage, of course. So the way I go about this is you can use an old blade. This is actually an old blade. I've used it for a good few projects already, but yeah, use one of your old blades if you want. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bevel the edge all the way around. Don't have to be too neat about it either. In fact, if you're not neat about it, that's fine. In fact, it kind of adds to the character of it, you know. And don't worry too much about the edges just yet. If you can't start the knife off on an edge, that doesn't really matter either, because we'll come back to everything. So nothing has to be overly perfect at all. In fact, you can be as rough as you like, and you can, once you get good at doing this, you can sit there and do this while you're watching a movie or something like that. You can just sit there with a bowl on your lap or a piece of cloth or something to collect all these little bits that are going to drop off. So I've just beveled. Did I bevel all the edges? No, I've got, well, that one doesn't look beveled enough to me anyway, so I'm going to go a bit more. Alright, so we're going to do more than that anyway when we go around the edges, but before we do, we're going to mark where the rivets are going to go, because we're going to really mash up the front of this panel. We're going to go quite far with this one. I mean, you can stop at any stage with your own when you're happy with it, but I'm just going to show you like how far you can kind of go. So I'm going to mark out where the rivets are going to go, because when it comes to gluing the rivets on, you want at least a flat surface on this thing to stick a rivet onto. So let's mark those out. So let's get a pencil. So we're going to want 1,
probably there. Gonna want one there. And this helps you also so that you make sure you don't actually cut away at where you're going to want to put a rivet. And if you do, it's no big problem. You can pretend that's a place where a rivet was lost. And sometimes it's fun to actually have missing rivets anyway. So I don't think we'll have one there. I think we'll just go for there and opposite. Doesn't need too many. Orcs aren't going to go over the top just to put an armour panel on, are they? And you don't have to be measuring out or anything with this either. It's a very rough skill. So then what we're going to do, now that we've got that marked, is we're going to go in on these edges. This is really hard to do with the camera like that. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut into the edge at a slight angle like that. Can you see? Yeah. And then we're going to go the other side of that cut and do almost the same thing. And you'll hear a little click, and that will pop out. And then you've created a nice bit of damage, see? See that? So that's one way of creating the damage with the triangles, but you can mess around with doing like a wider bevel and making like a shallower or longer cut. And really you can't go wrong. So the more you play around, like the more damage you're going to do, like this. So this is one technique, and you can follow this all the way around the edge. Another quick technique is also just to push down and pull away. So you just like that. This is why you're using an old blade, because just digging in, and you want to change up which direction you come from every now and again too, just to add variety to what you're doing. So I vary it between going between small picks like that and bigger cuts like that. So just keep on cracking on all the way around, and then we'll meet you at the other side. Okay, so I've had to marker pen them on, they keep rubbing off as well. So now you can see I've done that around. Don't worry about the little bits that are still sticking off from that, because we're not done yet. So next thing I like to do is start working on the front of it. So by that I mean we're going to pick out a cut that looks like it goes quite far up, so like something like that. What we're going to do is going to follow it onto the card, press down with the knife a little bit, just so it goes, try and get it so it shows you. Just see that under the knife, there's just a little bit of the plastic under the knife at the top. There we are. That's provided us with a nice scratch. So just push down a little bit and pull away, and you end up with scratch lines. See, there's lots and lots and lots of ways of producing these scratch lines, and it's really nice to get some intersecting ones as well. And I'm going to just show you another way that we can rough this up. After we've played around with a knife, what we can then do is take our files of weird shapes, like this one's a triangular one, see, and that's going to add another dimension to that whole bit that we just did. You could play around, so that was a really bad demonstration of that. So another thing you can do, if you've got really gnarly teeth like Dread has, then you can chew your plasticard, and it gives really good results. Now this was a technique that was actually something I was like, wow, how did I never think of that myself? It was shared to me by Curtis Fell of Ramshackle Games. So go and check him out. He's got some good bits and bobs, and this is, once you know that and you look at his stuff, you're like, he chewed it, that's what he did. But it gives really good damage. The only thing is that it can cause it to be a little bit non-flat, so just be careful, because you're chewing away, like I've even done the back of it. But usually you're putting a load of polystyrene cement on that side and gluing it onto something. Alright, so that's another thing you can do. And then, last but not least, I'm obviously going to carry on scratching away at this with a knife, but I just wanted to show you the next thing is to get yourself some odd shaped components for your Dremel, and just give it little dabs and stuff like that, because it will give really interesting rips into the plasticard and weird damage shapes. So that's basically what you do. That's basically what you're going to do. So I'll do that, and I'll show you how it looks when it's done, and then we'll talk about putting some rivets on. Okay, here we go. So we've got a little bit of damage going on, some nice scratching in there. It's starting to look like a proper Ork panel, isn't it? So let's get some rivets on. Now, one of the most common ways to do rivets, I will actually do an episode all about rivets, but one of the most common things to use is plastic rod. So I've got some hexagonal and I've got some round there, so I can make little screw heads, and I've got other sizes too. So I'm just going to cut up some rivets with a knife. It's just a case of just very thinly cutting the thickness of your rivet and trying to keep that knife straight when you cut down, and try not to let them fly across the room. Now that one is, yeah, that's usable. Why is it a bit damaged on one side? Let's see how that sits. Does it sit flat? Yeah, we'll use that. So that's all you're doing really, is you're just cutting little slivers off like that, and then I'm going to make a little head for it. So there you go, straight across the room. That's what you don't want to happen. Put your finger over it. There it is. Right, that'll be a screw. In fact, that's a bit long, that, isn't it, eh? It's going to stick up too much. We're going to need to cut that in half. Right, so I'll join you in a second once I've got these rivets stuck on, and then I'm going to put a little bit of wash over it so you can actually see how it looks. And here we are. Finished product. Something that you can add to your Orky vehicles. Really simple, only took a few minutes. So, and you know, some of that time was adding on this null oil, whatever the bloody hell it's called. Why can't they go back to having simple names? Wallies. But yeah, there you go, guys. Simple as that. Thanks, Dread.
Okay, if you liked this video, then like it down below. If it was useful to you, then make sure you check out the description there, because there's loads of useful stuff in the description, including my website and forum, where you can share all your work. So if you have a go at doing some Ork Armour, go ahead, join the forum, share it there, and then once you've made your little post and you've told us all about it, make sure you go on over to the 40k Ork community group on Facebook and check it out. See you in the next one.